Hey, welcome back to our exciting and informative and God spoken study of Genesis. Last week we had Joseph is now the second in command of all of Egypt. Why? Because God gave him insight into Pharaoh's dreams that Egypt would have 7 prosperous years followed by 7 years of famine. And so to stockpile in the first 7 years in order to make the last 7 years survivable. And so that's exactly what Egypt started to do. Now we get around to the famine years, and Joseph's family, Jacob and the boys, they are hungry. So Jacob sends them out to Egypt to go get food, and he fills their money bags and sends them on their way. They get the food, but Joseph sneaks the money back into their bags through his servant, and now they land back at home, realize that something ain't right, and that they're probably going to be accused of stealing. And they note to Jacob that the king guy there, the headmaster, said, "Don't even think about coming back here without your youngest brother, because I want to see him so I know you guys aren't liars and spies."
Yeah, they're probably thinking it's a trap and a setup.
Yeah, exactly.
Get rid of these pesky guys.
Now, we know from Joseph's side viewpoint that he's wanting to see if they got rid of Benjamin too, right? Because why else would all these brothers come down there minus the only other brother that Jacob loved besides him, who now they assume he's gone, or Jacob assumes he's gone. So he said, they probably got rid of him too, because otherwise he'd have been here. So don't even come back here unless you bring him with you. And so they tell Jacob about all this, and Jacob goes, "No way. No, he's all I got left. Rachel's gone, Joseph's gone, so I'm not giving you this one." And so it gets to the point where they're starving again. That food has run out, and so Jacob is at the point of giving in. So 43:11 through 17, please, sir.
You got it. And their father Israel said to them, "If it must be so, then do this. Take some of the best fruits of the land in your vessels and carry down a present for the man, a little balm and a little honey, spices, myrrh, pistachio nuts, almonds. Take double the money in your hand and take back in your hand the money that was returned in the mouth of the sacks. Perhaps it was an oversight. Take your brother also and arise and go back to the man. And may God Almighty give you mercy before the man, that he may release your brother Benjamin. If I am bereaved, I am bereaved." So the men took that present and Benjamin, and they took double the money in their hand, and arose and went down to Egypt, and they stood before Joseph. When Joseph saw Benjamin with them, he said to the steward of his house, "Take these men to my home, and slaughter an animal, and make ready, for these men will dine with me at noon." Then the man did as Joseph ordered, and the man brought the men into Joseph's house.
So the brothers gave the ruler, who was Joseph, double the money this time, right? Plus the money that was returned to them last time, and they presented Benjamin in front of him as well as required. And so Joseph orders a feast to be had at his house at noon. Just 18, please.
Now the men were afraid because they were brought into Joseph's house, and they said, "It is because of the money which was returned in our sacks the first time that we are brought in, so that he may make a case against us and seize us to take us as slaves with our donkeys."
So what the brothers are thinking, and probably rightfully so, is, all right, so yeah, we fessed up, but maybe he thinks we fessed up because we're starving again, and he brought double money and the original money, so he's going to lure us to his house, and then he's only going to end up taking us and making us slaves, and we're in deep trouble here. 19 through 25.
When they drew near to the steward of Joseph's house, they talked with him at the door of the house, and said, "O sir, we indeed came down the first time to buy food, but it happened when we came to the encampment that we opened our sacks, and there each man's money was in the mouth of his sack, our money in full weight, so we have brought it back in our hand. And we have brought down other money in our hands to buy food. We do not know who put our money in the sacks." But he said, "Peace be with you. Do not be afraid. Your God and your God of your father has given you treasure in your sacks. I had your money." Then he brought Simeon out to them. So the man brought the men into Joseph's house and gave them water, and they washed their feet, and he gave their donkeys feed. Then they made the present ready for Joseph's coming at noon, for they heard that they would eat bread there.
So let's take a snapshot of this whole scene right now. So the brothers are heading towards Joseph's house, and they're confronted with the servant at the door. Man, they are ready for spilling their beans and setting up their own defense, right? Just so that at least someone else knows exactly what happened, so that he might help them to protect them against this ruler, because they were truly innocent. So they said, "Hey, listen, this is what happened. I don't know how it happened, but we got back and we noticed that all of our monies had been returned. We didn't take it. It was just put into our bags, and we're not dishonest people." And furthermore, they said, this time we're actually bringing double as much as we brought last time, just because we feel bad. But and we're also going to return what was put in our sacks mistakenly. And the servant basically says, "I know, because I put that money in your bags," right? So they're like, "Whew. All right, well, at least this guy knows that we're not lying."
They came feeling pretty paranoid and concerned about their health. What do they call that? Transference, when you're feeling something because you're guilty about something you've done to others.
And why are they feeling guilty?
They sold their brother off into slavery.
Absolutely, right? And they figure he's dead. And godly people like us, we know that what comes around goes around, not by karma, not by fate, but rather because the person that we killed, their blood is crying out from the ground, and God's going to punish us. So they know that punishment is due, and we'll see that in a couple of verses as well. But now there's at least a little bit of sense of, all right, we're not going to all get slaughtered here, right? Because this guy did admit that he put that first original purchase price back in our bags. 26 through 31.
And when Joseph came home, they brought him the present which was in their hand into the house, and bowed down before him to the earth. Then he asked them about their well-being and said, "Is your father well? The old man of whom you spoke, is he still alive?" And they answered, "Your servant, our father, is in good health. He is still alive." And they bowed their heads down and prostrated themselves. Then he lifted his eyes and saw his brother Benjamin, his mother's son, and said, "Is this your younger brother of whom you spoke to me?" And he said, "God be gracious to you, my son." Now his heart yearned for his brother. So Joseph made haste and sought somewhere to weep. And he went into his chamber and wept there. Then he washed his face and came out. And he restrained himself and said, "Serve the bread."
So they come in. He greets his brothers in numbers. They're complete now, right? All of them are there outside of him. And he asks about their father, right, which is also his father. And they say, yeah, he's well. You know, he's older there. He's older now, but he's in good health. He's alive. Then he sees his baby brother Joseph or Benjamin. Now, like I said, 20 years have passed, right? So his little baby brother is not a little baby brother, but emotions just overcome him, and the joy of knowing that they didn't do to Benjamin what they had done to him sends him out of the room. He's got to go somewhere and just break down, sob tears of joy. And he does, and then he washes his face and he comes back out again.
Can I ask a question?
Mm-hmm.
Now, we've talked about Joseph a few times and how he's not feared anything that the Lord has put him into as far as his situation goes. This, to me, sounds like the first time he had a fear of something happening, which was possibly the death or something worse happening to his little brother. So it was for somebody else.
And that's why the original statement of don't even come back here unless you bring the youngest brother you're talking about, because they had not lied to him. They didn't say there's 10 of us, and the youngest one is still at home. They said there was 11 of us, or there was 12 of us, sorry, and one is no more, and the youngest is at home. So there's 10 of us here. And we have our father, and we obviously the family is intact, minus Rachel, but they don't mention that. So, he's already realizing that they're claiming that Benjamin is still alive. But he knows what they did to him, so he's not sure, and that's why he puts those stipulations in there. Don't come back unless you bring him with you. Now, they went back. They ate all the food that was there. Simeon's still in prison as collateral. Years have gone by. Maybe a year, maybe two, however long it took for that food to be used up, and now they're starving again, ready to go down to Egypt again. And so all this time it's going through his mind, maybe they did get rid of Benjamin, right? So, yeah, I think it's overwhelming for him to realize that they didn't do him in. Because they do recognize, I don't know if now or before, that Benjamin was, no, that's later on, that Benjamin was his father's favorite, right? Just like he was.
I'm just thinking it might be like one of those things maybe that God hadn't foreseen or promised him, even though God had said, don't worry, I'll take care of you. Maybe his little brother was just one of the little things off to the side that he didn't know about, that he was unsure. He was like, oh, God didn't really tell me it was one way or the other. These guys,
right?
I
And
know
don't
how they
forget,
are. They're liars, they're cheats, they're scoundrels.
Right, and don't forget, all the other mothers are still, or the other mother, Leah, is still alive. All the other brothers are still alive. But his mom, Rachel, was taken in childbirth with Benjamin, right? So, you know, he knows that at least his mom's gone, and he loved her too dearly.
I just get that thought because of how much it focuses on to him that he had to weep and separate himself. I know that he's doing it because he doesn't want to tell them yet who he is. He's not revealing himself yet.
Right.
But just the fact that they're focusing on the fact that he wanted to know, has now heard that everything's okay, and he had to go take some time out to cry for a bit. So to me, it just seems like it was probably weighing on him heavily. He was a little worried.
And the emotion has overcome him. Again, Scripture tells us this to point out that in prison, falsely accused, people thinking he's a rapist, people thinking that, he's a Looney Tune, and his brother's hating him and selling him into slavery. He's not okay with it, but he's kind of all right with it. He doesn't complain to God. He just says, I don't understand this, but every time I get into some deep trouble in a bad place, you seem to bless me. I get put in charge of it, and I see you working, so I trust you. No complaints, no crying. But when it comes to his family and tears of joy, he's a crybaby. He's a crybaby like Jeremiah. He's just a weeping crybaby, but out of emotion and out of love. So just 32, if you would please, Justin.
So they set him a place by himself, and them by themselves, and the Egyptians who ate with them by themselves, because the Egyptians could not eat food with the Hebrews, for that is an abomination to the Egyptians.
So let me set up this scene too because it's important. Joseph is the second in charge of all of Egypt. He has servants who are Egyptians. His brothers come unbeknownst to the Egyptians working for him, and his brothers didn't know that he knew who he was. But they come, and they're Hebrews. Everyone knows he's a Hebrew. So he gets placed at his own table, the head table, if you will. His brothers get set at their own table in order of their age. The Egyptian servants get set at another table. They're not even allowed to be sat at Joseph's table because Joseph is an abomination according to the nation of Egypt. So, even though he's a ruler, he's treated like a slave as far as fellowship goes. Right? Jesus fellowshipped with everyone. Gentiles, Jews, sinners, tax collectors. He was not considering anyone an abomination. But those that were full of sin, they considered Jesus an abomination because he would sit with such people. Egypt is a picture of sin. All right? So here's my rabbit trail for today. Everything in the Bible regarding Egypt is a picture of sin. Remember how Abraham was sent down, was told not to go down to Egypt, and he did anyways?
Twice. Didn't he? I think he even went down to Egypt twice. I think
Isaac went down once, too.
Yeah.
Abram and Isaac went down to Egypt because God had set them apart to be a special nation for himself. And he knew going down to Egypt was going to lead to a possibility of intermingling, to becoming comfortable down there, to be raising a family there because there's prosperity there. And what happens?
Both sucked in.
Yeah, Sarah got kidnapped into a harem. So did Rebecca. And so both of them found out what Egypt was like, right? With their idol worship, the harems. It was not a godly nation, right? They worshiped their own gods. And so, but God will tell us in Exodus 19:6 that his whole intent was always to keep them separate from the other nations, right? Because what did Abraham do? He sent Eliezer to go find a wife for Isaac back in his hometown. Not around that area, not down south in Egypt, because he didn't want Isaac to have a wife like his brother Esau did, wives that were Hittites and Hivites and whatever else of the ungodly people. So, he has a plan to make them a nation of priests set apart, right? Truly for him. And he can't do that if they're part of a ungodly nation because they'll intermingle. So, when he does this, then, well, it's kind of hard to say that he doesn't want them in Egypt because they're intermingle. Not now, he doesn't, when they're free. Now, when they become slaves, after they come down by Joseph, which we'll see next week or the week after, then they're still free. But eventually, the time will come when they're in captivity and slaves, and then they're isolated. They're actually insulated from the Egyptians because, just as we saw here in this scenario, the Egyptians will not even fellowship with the Israelites, with the Hebrews. And the same goes with the Hebrews. They want nothing to do with the Egyptians because they have their own God, and so God is able to seal them in this land of Egypt to grow and prosper and not to wander about and intermingle so that they keep their national identity.
They're not picking up bad habits.
Right.
He needed them to grow strong enough for a time where they could support each other and not
live
fall
off of
back,
each other,
right?
right?
And not fall back on the bad habits of the people they're near.
Absolutely. So they can live in this environment for 400 plus years and grow as a nation without becoming ungodly and polluted by the Egyptian mentality. This leads me to the Exodus that we'll be coming to. So Moses delivers the people, the Israelites, from Egypt, right? Moses delivers the Israelites from sin. How does he deliver them, or how does God deliver them through Moses? Through the Red Sea. Absolutely, Joseph. And that Red Sea is a form of baptism. All right, because baptism actually means to be submerged, to be encapsulated, right, by the holiness, to be surrounded, so to be engulfed in holiness. And so they are baptized, a symbolic baptism, as they go through the Red Sea. And what is caught up in the Red Sea and demolished? Egypt. And Egypt is sin. So sin is defeated in baptism. Now, Moses was not allowed to bring the people into the promised land. This is because, well, there's many reasons for this, but mainly because the law, which Moses represents, cannot bring you to salvation. Okay? Moses was not allowed to bring the people into salvation, if you will, the promised land. The person who was able to bring the people into salvation, into the promised land, was named Joshua. Now, Joshua, in Hebrew, his name is translated Yahweh is salvation, or God is deliverance. That's what Joshua means in Hebrew. In Koine Greek, the same name Joshua is spoken as Jesus. It's not a coincidence, but Jesus led the people into the promised land.
That's Savior or Messiah is what Jesus is?
Well, Jesus is God with us, if right, God with us according to the scriptures. It's Emmanuel, right? God with us, but his physical name was Jesus, which we also know is God is deliverance and Yahweh is our salvation. So strangely enough, or not coincidentally, Joshua was able to deliver them into salvation, into the promised land. Just like Joshua, Jesus is the only one who's able to deliver us into the promised land, into salvation, right? That's why. That's why it's absolutely true that he is the only way, the only truth, and the only life, right? He's the only deliverer. Now here in Joseph's house again, just to bring us back to that symbolism, sin has no place at the table of the righteous, right? Even though the Egyptians thought they were the righteous ones and the Hebrews were an abomination, in actuality, the Hebrews would be the ones that would be righteous, and the Egyptians would be unrighteous.
And even though, I guess, a quick question on the Moses side, he was a righteous man. He was God's man. He was an instrument of God, but he made some mistakes, and that was what we talked about in Exodus.
His disqualifier, was that
what really pushed him out of the.
Was that he smoked the rock a second time, right? Because God had said the first time when people were complaining, "Oh, you brought us out here to die of thirst, and we would have been better if we would have stayed in Egypt." And so God says, "Well, go out and strike the rock, and water will come flowing from it." And that was symbolic of, yes, Jesus had to be stricken in order for the living water to come flowing out of it. The second time is after Jesus was stricken, after the rock was stricken. The second time he says, "Speak to the rock." But he smote it a second time. So, Jesus doesn't need to be smitten a second time. Once is complete. It's a forever done, one and done. So, from that point on, we don't need to go back to the crucifixion over and over again. Now that mediator, as you said, the curtain was torn, is now our advocate, that we can speak directly to God in the name of Jesus Christ. So he's our mediator, and hence God was trying to make clear to Moses, this time all you have to do is speak to the rock for the living water, right? Or the water that will keep you alive. So, and then I couldn't help about thinking about Pastor Daniel's whole sermon series, right? I don't remember the exact title, but it was something like, "You can take the man out of Egypt, but it's hard to take Egypt out of the man," right? That's because Egypt is a picture of the sin nature. And we're all born in Egypt, if you think about it. And we all have to break free from Egypt. We all have to get on the bandwagon, but this time not with Moses, because the law is completed, but this time it's with Jesus Christ.
All types of false idolatry. Even the pharaohs called themselves gods.
Yeah, and as we'll see in a little bit here, when, like Joseph said last week, when Joseph's going to be caught during Bible study. It wasn't during this morning Bible study on Sunday. He says, "Yeah, next week we'll be talking about the silver cup that Benjamin gets caught with." Well, this silver cup was supposedly a cup of divination, right? Because that's what the Egyptians did. They were diviners. They were soothsayers. They practiced witchcraft. They practiced. When we see Moses encountering the sorcerers, right? I think he turns the water into blood, and so the sorcerers turned the water into blood. And different things. I think throwing the staff down into a snake, the sorcerers were able to duplicate that, right? So Egypt is known for sorcery, and the righteous are known for miracles. So, but Egypt is a place that God only used that one time and it was under the terms of enslavement where the Hebrews wouldn't go anywhere. They were forced to stay there, and he would populate them to the point where Egypt was trying to get rid of them, because that was God's plan, to use Egypt just for that purpose. So now we'll go on to verses 33 and 34.
And they sat before him, the firstborn according to his birthright, and the youngest according to his youth. And the men looked in astonishment at one another. Then they took servings to them from before him, but Benjamin's serving was 5 times as much as any of theirs. So they drank and were very merry with him.
So they were, of course, flabbergasted, right? It says it astonished them. The odds of seating 11 people in birthright order is 11 factorial, which, if I'm not mistaken, is 11 times 10 times 9 times 8 times 7 times 6 times 5 times 4 times 3 times 2.
I missed that part. So it's Joseph. Sorry, because we went down that rabbit trail. I disconnected too. So Joseph is seating them according to their age,
right,
and their youth. So everybody assumes this. He has no idea who they are, and how could he know their age?
Exactly. And so, if you'll hit pause for 1 second. So 11 factorial is, just like I said, 11 times 10 times 9 times 8, etc., if I remember the formula correctly, would be 479,001,600 to 1 odds of getting it correct.
Or combinations of is
Yeah,
another way.
479,001,600 different combinations to 11 people sitting in one order. So he got it basically 1 in 479 million. He nailed it, and so it didn't even take his breath away to do it. So they were like, whoa, that's like amazing, right? And so then he does what, though? What does he set in front of Benjamin?
5 times as much food.
Right. So why does he do this, do you think?
Well, he likes him, misses him.
Yeah, but maybe also to tempt him, right? Wait a second. We got rid of that Joseph because he was the favorite. This one's Dad's new favorite, and now he's being favored over all of us. This is deja vu all over again, right? Maybe he's doing it to see if they've changed their ways, or if they're going to get mad and be like, why is the youngest getting more than the oldest who has the birthright? That's not fair, right? I'm thinking it's a possibility, but I'm thinking that it might have been a test to see if they get mad again, just like they did with him, when they were told that they would have to bow down to him at some point.
That's very
Well,
likely.
hop into Genesis 44, 1 through 5, please.
And he commanded the steward of his house, saying, fill the men's sacks with food, and as much as they can carry, and put each man's money in the mouth of his sack. Also put my cup, the silver cup, in the mouth of the sack of the youngest, and his grain money. So he did according to the word of Joseph had spoken. As soon as the morning dawned, the men were sent away, and they and their donkeys. When they had gone out of the city and were not yet far off, Joseph said to his steward, get up, follow the men, and when you overtake them, say to them, why have you repaid evil for good? Is not this the one from which my Lord drinks, and with which he indeed practices divination? You have done evil in so doing.
So, again, right, it was very self-explanatory that Egyptians used demons and witchcraft and So this silver cup, since they thought he was Egyptian, was what Joseph used for divination, right? Evil, what do you call it?
Discernment.
Fortune telling.
Fortune telling.
And that's how he got it right with how they were sitting in order. And so he says, "Go. I'll fill their sacks. I'll also slip the money back in there, but this time I want you to take my cup and put it in the youngest's saddlebag. I'll send them on their way, and then you go after them and you confront them and say, 'Why have you done this evil thing of taking this divination cup from your master after all he's done for you?'" So the plot thickens.
He's having some fun with his brothers.
Right, yeah, because again, we'll see the test coming up in a second. So Genesis 44, 6 through 9.
So he overtook them, and he spoke to them these same words. And they said to him, "Why does my Lord say these words? Far be it from us that your servant should do such a thing. Look, we brought back to you from the land of Canaan the money which we found in the mouth of our sacks. How then could we steal silver or gold from your Lord's house? With whomever of your servants it is found, let him die, and we also will be my Lord's slaves."
So basically, they're saying we would never do such a thing. We were honorable the first time around. We told you that we don't know how the money got in our saddlebags. We brought you twice as much this time just because, and gave it to you just because we felt bad, and we returned the first portion of the monies as well. And so we didn't do this. So as a matter of fact, if you find it in one of our saddlebags, kill the person whose saddlebags you found it in, because we wouldn't do such a thing. We're honorable men, right? Put that person to death, and the rest of us will be slaves for you. So 10 through 13.
And he said, "Now also let it be according to your words. He with whom it is found shall be my slave, and you shall be blameless." Then each man speedily let down his sack to the ground, and each opened his sack. So he searched. He began with the oldest and left off with the youngest. And the cup was found in Benjamin's sack. Then they tore their clothes, and each man loaded his donkey and returned to the city.
So the servant says, "All right, well, instead of killing him and the rest of you going into servitude, whoever's bag is found in, or the silver cup is found in, that person will be my slave, or will be the master's slave, and the rest of you can go." So sure enough, they empty out the bags, and voila, it's in Benjamin's bag. And so the servant of the master says, "All right, I'm going to take him as our slave, and you guys can go." Well, they start tearing their clothes, which is a sign of mourning, right? They're like, "Oh, man, there's no way. Are you kidding me?" It's going through their mind. And what's going through their mind is in 14 through 17.
So Judah and his brothers came to Joseph's house, and he was still there. And they fell before him on the ground. And Joseph said to them, "What deed is this you have done? Did you not know that such a man as I can certainly practice divination?" Then Judah said, "What shall we say to my lord? What shall we speak, or how shall we clear ourselves? God has found out the iniquity of your servants."
Right. So what they're saying is, we don't have a defense. We have no way of talking our way out of this, because God has basically heard the blood cry out from the ground of our brother Joseph, and this is our punishment. You're going to take away the only other thing our father loves. It's going to cause his death, and it's all because we deserve it. This is how I don't know what to say. they're saying to the master, right?
Yeah. So, finishing 16. Here we are, my Lord's slaves, both we and he also with whom the cup was found. But, he said, far be it from me that I should do so. The man in whose hand the cup was found, he shall be my slave. And as for you, go up in peace to your father.
So, it's like they're just devastated, because there's no way they can do that. They can't leave him back here. So Judah is going to plea with everything that he has, and that's 18 through 34. So take a deep breath. It's a long one.
I'm thinking they're pretty afraid of going home without Benjamin too, because of what Dad had warned.
Right. I mean, they know for a fact they're going to see him die of a heart attack right before their very eyes, and that journey back home is going to be the longest that they've ever had, and it's going to make them sick. Just because we killed the first one and we lost the second one, and Dad's just gonna that's it, he's gone.
So 18. Then Judah came near to him and said, O my Lord, please let your servant speak a word in my Lord's hearing, and do not let your anger burn against your servant, for you are even like Pharaoh. My Lord asked his servants, saying, have you a father or a brother? And he said to my Lord, we have a father, an old man, and a child of his old age, who is young. His brother is dead, and he alone is left of his mother's children, and his father loves him. Then you said to your servants, bring him down to me, that I may set my eyes on him. And we said to my Lord, the lad cannot leave his father, for if he should leave his father would die. But you said to your servants, unless your youngest brother comes down with you, you shall see my face no more. So it was, when we went up to your servant, my father, that we told him the words of my Lord. And our father said, go back and buy us a little food. But we said, we cannot go down. If our youngest brother is with us, then we will go down. For we may not see the man's face unless our youngest brother is with us. Then your servant, my father, said to us, you know that my wife bore me 2 sons, and that one went out from me, and I said, surely he is torn to pieces, and I have not seen him since. But if you take this one also from me, and calamity befalls him, you shall bring down my gray hair with sorrow to the grave. Now, therefore, when I come to your servant, my father, and the lad is not with us, since his life is bound up in the lad's life, it will happen, when he sees that the lad is not with us, that he will die. So your servants will bring down the gray of your servant our father with sorrow to the grave, for your servant became surety for the lad to my father, saying, if I do not bring him back to you, then I shall bear the blame before my father forever. Now therefore, please let your servant remain instead of the lad as a slave to my Lord, and let the lad go up with his brothers. For how shall I go up to my father if the lad is not with me, lest perhaps I see the evil that would come upon my father?
So again, he's just reiterating that the whole back and forth with Jacob about how they weren't going to go unless they brought Benjamin, because that's what he had said, but they were needing food, and that was the only way. But now to lose Benjamin there would be the death of all of them. It just, they laid it out as to exactly what was going on, and so that's where we're going to leave it for today. Judah's pleading with all that he has. Benjamin is his father's favorite. He just announced that, right? There's no jealousy there as far as, okay, keep him. now we can go back, brothers, and we'll be rid of that pesky one too. No. He's saying, indeed, he's his father's favorite because his other father's favorite is no more and his wife is no more. And so we can't go back without him. So they're not saying anything other than they recognize that Benjamin is their father's favorite and they're okay with that because of what they did to Joseph. And that he's all that he has left because even his beloved Rachel is gone. He does the honorable thing and he says, please take me instead. You know what? I deserve this. As the oldest brother, as the next or heir to the family name, as the double portion, it's my fault. I should have never let this happen. And, God's coming back at us for what we did. But please, take me, let the boy go. All right, so Joseph is seeing some change of heart of those brothers that wanted to kill him the moment he came over that hill, watching out for what, or spying on them, if you will, because Jacob had sent Joseph to go spy on his brothers. It's touching that people can change their ways, right? Even those brothers who conspire to kill your own brother. Not just talk about it or hate him, but let's get a plan of action together to destroy the kid. And instead of killing him, why don't we just make him suffer a little bit and get some money out of him and sell him to some slave traders? Then he'll be gone. He'll probably die there, but at least we'll get some money out of it. These boys are now saying, we did wrong. God's punishing us for this. We recognize that. Take me. I'm the guilty party. Let him go. And so it's Joseph is sensing a change in their attitude, and I think that's why he set them up. Because this would have been a perfect chance for them to say, okay, well, there's nothing we can do about it. Benjamin, see ya. We're out of here. We're in good terms with the master. We got our food. We got our money. And we're out of here. But that wasn't the case. So next week we'll pick it up at the beginning of chapter 45. And that's it for today.
Yeah. I just like also that he's pleading in his father's name for his father's sake too. So that's a
right,
nice,
because isn't that the godly way of doing it? Now, Egyptians are Egyptians, right?
Yeah.
And you see it in this world too. Non-godly people don't have the same care about doing right as godly people do. Ungodly people have no problem with letting their children be indoctrinated in school and have no problem with Christians being charged with hate speech. They have no problem with laws banning.
We saw during COVID not letting people be with their parents while they were dying in the hospital.
Right. And people were like, oh, if you don't get the jab, then you're trying to kill us by spreading this life-threatening common cold. And it was
2,000-year-old common cold.
yeah, right. And so, and not only that, but meanwhile, parents were realizing what kind of indoctrination is going on in the schools. Right. Well, because of the kids were now doing remote learning, and they could see how they were pushing this choose your own gender religion. It's not a science. It's a religion. Teaching it to kindergartners, right?
Mm-hmm.
Take a circle and if you push in the sides and push in the top, you got a square. so you can make a square out of a circle, and it's the same with the human body. If you were born a circle and you need to be a square, well, you can just change that. It's indoctrination that they started in the schools, and there's a couple right now in Great Britain. I believe it's Great Britain. I'll have to check on that, but it was on either Fox or Newsmax, and they are going to get sentenced to 90 days in jail because they homeschooled their kids, and intelligently, they are smarter than the other kids in the school, but they did not include the inclusivity teachings, and they didn't include the gender identity subjects, and so they're being charged with educational neglect.
Yeah, I just think I mean, like I said, in the end, going up into the end of 44 there, where he's using his father and pleading, I think that going back to the family part of it, pleading and exchanging his life for his youngest brother as the oldest brother, and then also showing fear of the death of his father, that to me tugs, like you were saying, at the heartstrings of any man.
True. Yeah, you're right, but there's some that are hardened to it.
Yeah.
I think it's more of a Christian thing to be honorable versus the Egyptians were not like that. It's
Or you say a godly thing.
I think it's a godly thing, right? Because we were created in His image, and what is that image? It's to do the right thing
And to love our Father.
To love our Father, to seek our family again, right? To be one, to know to love your wife, to lead her like Christ leads the church, to teach your children to know about God, teach them in the way they shall go,
to sacrifice for the future generations.
Exactly.
For the future, not to worry about today, but to help
and not teach them how to scam the welfare system because they see you living off of welfare with your side jobs under the table and with the giant screen TVs and the pack of cigarettes, and how you live off the system. That's not teaching the children, right? This is teaching the children in the way that they should go, and that includes God and doing the right thing, right? And so, yeah, they're trying to do the right godly thing, and that's to not hurt their father. So.
All right, 45 next week. Thank you.